I thought I'm going to change a little bit what I had planned to do here. Since Jewel read a poem about a restaurant in the Mission, I'm going to read a poem about a restaurant in the Mission. So this is for Jewel. Revelation in the Radio Habana Social Club. Learning how to focus in a hole-in-the-wall cafe and having some hallucinations with your rice and beans. The walls are covered with so many crooked pictures, like there was an earthquake in the Louvre. Much ado about the doll and its idolatry reminds me of Hans Belmer, the perversities of childhood and what happens when they turn into adults. The room is closer to the Cuban than the Cubist, but there's so much going on. You focus and refocus on the background and the foreground with the house red going to your head. I realized that overhead there was a row of skeletons with green lights blinking in their ribs, and hanging from a ceiling fan a Barbie doll is quivering. She has a leather jacket and a lizard tail. It's like the attic is collapsing and the sky is falling. Body parts are flying through the air. I'm getting an exploded view of the collective Caribbean unconscious. Waiter, there's a leg in my soup. The walls will knock you for a loop. I'm having dinner with the manic depression of the mannequins and practicing my social skulls. The things they pull out of a hat. A baby turns into a rat. A winged whore. Hieronymus Bosch was here. I lean on a machine gun crutch and look at Ginsberg with no clothes on. There's a hollow doll whose head is turned into a gun, because a gun is for the hollow men. There is a subtext here of hybrids and decapitation, and some low-bred occupations. On the counter is a guillotine. A pair of plastic tits were cut off and they're on the wall. So much of art is in the fact of being framed. A tour de force of kitsch. A dolly crucifixion by the kitchen. And some Rocky Horror, I Love Lucy Leninism. Does it come with commie kisses? There's a dummy with a trumpet and Medusa on a spinning swan. Her sword is held up like a phallic exclamation point. Another doll is in a compromising position with a horse, and it will need to see an animal psychiatrist. I see the Mickey Mouse governor of California. That's enough to make you lose your appetite. Hallucination is the spice of life, and there's some spicy cooking in this place. A headless torso on the wall, a head emerging from a shoe. You can lose your mind in here and find yourself in Radio Habana heaven. It is rehab in the evening with a certain reverb and old photos which are out of time. I'm looking at Santana in the 70s, a transitory feeling coming through the ceiling. The satanic has a hand in this confusion, a delirious voodoo of the all-inclusive, with the rational becoming more elusive, but they don't forget your check. The balances are redefined. I'm caught between the simultaneous and the subconscious at the moment of a transformation, and the business is bizarre. A man drops by. He has a one-string instrument, a long bow and a gourd. I'm never bored in here, a place I can afford, with no one saying praise the Lord, and it's just around the corner from the Revolution Cafe. Thank you, so I'll get back to my regularly scheduled program.
Do you have a vegetarian menu?
No.
Yes. I mean, that's what that's what I get there. And really nice house red wine. And yeah, it's delirious. The whole place is delirious. And I gave that poem to them. I even framed it. Because I thought, well, maybe they'll put it on the wall and I'll get a free meal. And there's no room on the wall. There's absolutely no room. And I have yet to get a free meal.
It's a thought that counts.
No, it's the meal. None of that platonic bullshit. I can't do it on it. Anyway, this is an old one. When the future turns to sand. Alcoholics are a waste of time. and I was getting in the way of her drinking, so she threw our love into a bottomless pit. I'm looking at it every day. I flow with the ghost and make the most of having more room in my life in my apartment, but a change of pace would do me good. So I went out to the edge of the continent. A lover's leap is not what I was looking for. I wanted a diversion from the letdown when a long affair is over and existence is becoming hard to take. When you're in love, it's like your tires are full of air. Without it, they are flat. You're riding on the rims. I was diverted by a spider web which glittered in the bushes, and some potheads coughing at the foot of the cliff, and rock formations with a mind of their own, and tons of water moving through the air and falling on the shore. It is disintegrating with the wave evaporating. Do I need an ocean to relax my soul, or just an aerial diversion and a trail? It is a way of knowing that you have your feet on the ground. My hand is on the sand. It feels like gunpowder, and a wave explodes. When you're alone, you have no insulation, and you need the company of others. They're as real as your skin, and I'm related to the elements as much as I'm related to my parents. Dying waves caress my field of vision, and the overlapping currents are colliding with the horizontal movement as they wash the beach. A wave is ricocheting off a rock and reaching for translucency before it breaks. I am diverted by a rough terrain. It can protect me from the time I spent with her. Fortunately, I'm married now, so I don't have to go through all that.
Just wait.
Happy. Joy. This is about art. And I assume everybody knows who de Kooning is, right? Painter. How original is my refrigerator? I have an original de Kooning. It is held up by refrigerator magnets on the front of my refrigerator. People wonder how original is it if I cut it out of the newspaper. And it's true, I didn't originate the custom of hanging pictures in the kitchen, but who knows how much is triggered by an image. What if the originality of my mind is compensating for the fact that it's a humble reproduction? Would it make it more original if I paid $100,000 for it? What if the originality of a work of art is lost on someone who is not original, who is a shallow reproduction of a human being, more derivative than native? I have stolen paintings with my eyes. I memorized Lucian Freud, and no one now can take it away. Immersed in all my other thoughts, the painting has been taking on a life of my own. It's gravitating to a greater depth according to the being of the viewer. On the other hand, I wouldn't want a paper moon. It's made of rock, and every month it rocks my world with forces as important as the origins of life. Thank you. In keeping with that artistic theme, this is a poem for the painter Nathan Oliveira, who died a few years ago. And like a fool, I never gave this to him. So don't wait. He was in Stanford for many years. Oliveira in Oblivion. A silhouette is full of the uncertain. It's surrounded by a curtain of a luminescent, ragged psyche in a color-wounded field. A discriminating haze of what you know and feel and can discern. A self-incriminating craze. A smoky nuance in the air. The figurine is undefined. The atmosphere is made of him exploded. His identity a mere formality. He knows about submersion in the world, his perception blending with the air. Unconsciously, the man's an android. Tragedy has torn the shadow of his self-respect. Whatever is left is posing in a void or standing in a random murk, a darkness he was born with in the anonymity of ectoplasm, his body occupying space. There is a busy reflection of his presence, a side of the person never seen, a side without a face, and time erased it. Can he stand it? The unconscious, in a furious effort of osmosis, struggles to attain the anthropomorphic, but his origins are smeared. The costume may be all he has to go on. Everything is gone or going. He wears an echo of the madness like a neurologic uniform, where the random and the dignified are meeting during a storm at night. The figurine with no decision is a residue of their collision and collusion in the background of a man. He's made of their blown traces in the air. The torn unknown has taken up its death, and then it walks. Thank you. I read this once or twice before. It's fairly recent. So I'll read it again. I like civilization. I like civilization. You can have a conversation with an educated person 1,000 miles away and know the government is listening in order to correct any misconceptions you may have about the facts of life. Some of the facts are not allowed to cross the border, as the government is trying to protect us from the facts of life, as they can be disturbing. Hidden prisons are a fact of life, and so is the diminishing of science in the minds of people when so many facts are disappeared. The government is so respectful of the art of conversation, it records whatever we are saying to each other for posterity. And so we're sounding natural. It doesn't tell us that we're being recorded. Otherwise, some people might get stage fright. Knowing an anonymous bureaucrat is listening to everything you say, however personal, would interfere with a relaxed and private mood. And so the government is doing us a service by not telling us our phones are bugged. And it can get more information when the speakers think it is okay to speak their minds. In China in the 1950s, people were encouraged to be more critical of the regime. The strategy was to let 100 flowers blossom, but the government was taking notes. And when so many had revealed themselves as dissidents, they were arrested and the flowers died in prison. There's a lot to be stressed out about, with people spending money on whatever it takes to calm their nerves. And all the government wants to do is keep the citizens off balance, so it's hard for them to organize. It doesn't want us taking it for granted, like it is supposed to be a repository of truth and justice, which is asking too much of the government. Or maybe you believe in heaven too. The surveillance drones are made in heaven, or they're flying close to it, and like a god they keep us honest and on edge, and the authorities are killing 2 birds with 1 drone, the Constitution and the rumors of a revolution. The authorities are helping out the businesses involved in manufacturing surveillance drones and tranquilizers, because the business of America is business. And in order to stay in business, one must be absolutely modern, to quote a long-dead poet. The information flying around is common knowledge. All is known, and we are naked in the eyes of others. What is there to stop the government from reading everything you write online? It wants to monitor a twilight of the individual and see what characteristics should be phased out over time. If a doctor or a psychiatrist can see right through a man, why not the government? It takes our pulse, it handcuffs the impulsive, and it stares into our homes. In order to enforce the law, it hires the repulsive. Human beings are as stubborn as weeds and liberty is habit-forming. There is such a thing as a persistence of memory. With humanism, something you remember. When it is forgotten, it is coming back like roller skating. But the schools are teaching less and less of it. And there are other forces which have been promoting a reactionary level of amnesia. There is nothing more subversive than to hold on to the factual for dear life and remember everything that happened. Your humanity is rooted in the past, and that is adding to the resonance. And when you hear some politician saying it's the end of history, you know another prison is being built. Thank you. This is called disillusionment. It is testing the maturity of someone when it comes to how they weather disillusionment. It happens to the best of us, and it is hard to avoid, the human condition coming with a lot of wishful thinking, like a moth colliding with a truck. Illusions are a side effect of being under pressure with a limited awareness, and you're reaching for a pleasant thought like someone drowning reaches for a stick, and then it turns to smoke, and you inhale it, and it's keeping you afloat, but not forever. I have weathered disillusionment and lived to tell about it. I was talking with my wife, who graduated from a women's college in New England, living in a dormitory, and I asked her about the topless pillow fights occurring every evening. And she said, "What topless pillow fights?"
Just a vile rumor, huh? Shit.
Sad. It was sad. I'll get over it. And I thought I would read this one for Reader's Bookstore because it's about reading. So I thought that made sense. I don't read in bookstores that often, so it's more like bars and places like that. Called Transcript. Am I wandering anywhere over there? It's physically relaxing while it stimulates the mind, and it requires some dexterity if one is blind. You're riding on the optic current of a borrowed insight. Though you're horizontal, it will keep you up at night. You listen to the inner monologue of someone famous or the outer dialogues of the anonymous. You're riding on their shoulder as they interview another human being who is rumored to have had a mother once upon a time. A writer doesn't feel his readers. They are weightless. They are ghosts who are looking for a leader. Their attention is conforming to a narrative. It has a logic of its own. They are comparatively literate, the veterans of print. The way it tickles a remote intelligence you didn't know you had. Evoking terrorism, tarot cards, or pterodactyls. And you realize your sorry life is not so bad. A candelabra with the shadow of your testicles projected on the wall. A million strangers testifying in their published streams of consciousness about a theory of the will. The written word is nothing if not eerie. A thought is fusing in your head. The nerve ends and the synapses and self-hypnosis of a literary time-lapse. Maybe it is an excuse for staring straight ahead. A fallback method when there's nothing else to do in bed. Your head is like a ticker tape machine when you are reading and it doesn't stop. The literary may be leading the witness down the garden path of some pathology. The reader is relying on his own biology to keep him honest. But every book is a detective story. or the writer is invisible, a mystery. This is very recent. I'm not really sure what to think about it. It's called I Think Outside the Bath. Am I going too fast? All right. We're caught between bacteria and the corporate state, and have a lot of time to contemplate our fate, particularly when we're out of work. I walk into the future every day. There is a wicked and historical reverb in the air. My hair has ESP, although it is in bad repair. A lunatic is yelling on the street about identity theft. The residents are blacking out. Instead of a record player, I should have bought a hat. A record keeping track of where your head is at, and so you spin the sin. My dreams are schizophrenic when it comes to making sense. A neuroscenic literature is not my cup of tea. A tomboy is not a bomb toy. I am feeling so atomic it is misanthropic. In the aftermath, I have to live alone. I think outside the bath. U.S. law will prevent an authoritarian shutdown, but no one believes that here in Lonesome Town. The law is nothing but a whore made out of spider webs. It is a product of an unknown writer. It is easily torn up in a land of scripted disorientation. If you want to be nondescript, you're in the right place. The artificial urgencies of modern life are leading to insurgencies. My relatives are relative. And who are you in this mechanical milieu? I have a dim view of humanity when I have a stomachache. My objectivity is doing a double take. If human beings are a fake out of the future, they are something to avoid. I am unsure about it. While she looks up oysters on the phone, I have my hand between her legs. We're not alone. So I think I have two more. Does that sound about right? You okay with that? And this one's kind of short, called News Leak. There's a leak inside my head from which the words are pouring on a regular basis. The solidity of others is eluding me. I am renewed whenever I take off my clothes. In closing, I just want to say the words appear inside my skull like phrases floating up inside the darkness of an 8-ball made of nothingness and being. Everyone is an insider in that respect. The future may be blind, but there is a perpetual motion of an inner monologue to make a person feel at home. It's probably related to the habit of whistling in a graveyard, and the earth is an enormous cemetery orbiting in outer space. If you keep talking, then you won't feel out of place. Reminds me of the night when we were reading poems and the riot squad was breathing down our necks because we're in the middle of the street. And we were told as long as we kept talking, it would constitute a lawful assembly and they wouldn't arrest us. They would test us with a mute intimidation and what else is new. That was on Market Street in front of
With
the,
Daniel Ellsberg sitting on a lawn chair.
that's right, in front of the Fed.
He wanted to be arrested. He was
And
disappointed.
Bobby was holding the camera or the microphone.
The megaphone.
Megaphone.
And then we both read after
Yeah,
and invited everyone to lay down on the tracks.
yeah, and the whole riot squad was, I mean, literally not even 10 feet behind us, just lined up across Market Street, because,
Ellsberg stayed to the
and he stayed,
very
yeah.
end.
I still think they were there for the poetry, but they had to hide their feelings behind these masks and shields. And
No, they said they were there to protect us.
from them. Doesn't that sound like selling protection? You know how the mob? Yeah, the mob does that. Not that there's any relationship between the mob and the government. I would never want to say that organized crime works hand in hand with the United States government for many years now. Jaya Guru. Alright, my last one. Over here. It's called Free Words. Go with the free one. Spoken word and self-promotion. There is a sound wave locomotion with the local yokels vocalizing. Words are volatile. They are connected to the brain, a neurological refrain. It hits you like a lightning bolt. It's in your blood and the revolt is running you. It's hot and cold inside my head, a sense of dread connected to an empty bed, demented though, as if he meant it, and the sidewalks have cemented my relationship to city living. The audacity of everybody's audio, the poets saying adios until they're black and blue in the face, a nervous nerve in outer space, and that's where everybody lives, and I believe that it forgives our sins. It is a scintillating universe, a vacillating destiny inherited by virtue of unmerited arrival through the vaginal. Your ego is imaginal. Your magic subjectivity can generate activity that takes a lifetime to resolve. I am revolving into something else, and some of us are singing in the graveyard. It is bringing it all back home because you live in your lungs. It gives you breathing room and airy brainwaves, I assume. And if the oxygen is making you an airhead and you're taking liberties and think you should be getting royalties, I wouldn't disagree. Refine your voice, your sins forgiven by the void. You're trashy and delusional, the dizziness as usual. The sound effects are kind of cruel. The human body is a tool. It's tuning up the intuition as you walk into the ocean or an uninhibited lake with your libido on the make. It takes a certain attitude. We're looking for some latitude according to the laws of matter and the purple light inside a glass of wine, the smoothest ride in town, and all the intonations of complete communication when the poets get together and the literary weather can be dry, or is it stormy with no reason and the normal folks are hit by winds and lightning bolts. And if they want to lighten up, they smoke a little weed and later get back to the word, feeling like they somersaulted with a joint. It's not their fault that there are signals in the air, an existential laissez-faire. Who needs a two-dimensional tension when you have the fourth dimension for expanding your persona? It is filling up the phone. But maybe it's unrealistic, living in a long linguistic dream. An old preoccupation could have had an occupation, but instead you were diverted by the voices and the words inside your head. A time-consuming way of being, where you're zooming in on the remote. I'm living by remote control. It's giving me an air of being not all there, and then I hear the call of nature. The brain, by definition, is a warp, a human heat wave on 2 feet, a 4-dimensional transparency. It's more than I can hold a candle to. And there are times that I can't handle it, but others have it worse. Incapable of writing verse, their lives are such a bump and grind, the turbulence inside the mind like riding on a munibus, and every sentence is a bust. The meanings are illegible, and so you're getting kind of edgy, your mentality deflected, your dimension disconnected. Lost in space, I feel more grounded with a woman, lost and found inside of her, a twilight zone of estrogen. It sets the tone for all of those misunderstandings, but you come in for a landing with a woman and the earth is moving. Maybe it isn't worth it. Seeing your autonomy eclipsed by her anatomy. But life is like a woman bending over and I know the ending. Thank you.